Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I am happy to be here with you every week, every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk to you about what matters, about what's on your mind, to hear your voice every week on our live stream, reaching the entire world. And we hope that everyone is being well on this Father's Day. Now, for those that this is the first time you're seeing our program, we want to welcome you and thank you for joining us. And we do long-form political commentary. And this is when you get to speak with us directly on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, DLive, all the social media that the internet overlords will allow, to tell us what you think about what's going on. And I hope that everyone is going to be having a great day. Please remember that you can always reach us on the chat. Again, or you can even call into the program at 607-242-1582. Now, with the introductions on, I think we are on YouTube, Twitter. Facebook looks like it's having a little bit of a problem. We're on DLive, so I'm looking forward to everyone speaking with us there. And on this Father's Day, I want to start off, before we say anything else, I do want to mention this wonderful image. And this is a memory from last year in 2020, and I want to share it with you right now. Because a year ago, there was a rainbow over Binghamton, New York, where we are situated in our studio. And it was a message of hope in the midst of the fear and isolation that was 2020. And today I look back on that rainbow and remember that no matter the tragedy or loss, and there have been many losses for us this year in 2021, there is still hope for today and tomorrow. That rainbow is a message that those of us we've lost are looking down on us, and they are saying we are okay and we will be okay, not only now, but in the future as well. And I want to share that message, that rainbow, with you all, especially as I am mourning the loss of my great friend, Dan Polkorak, who passed last week at the age of 40. And he was an inspiration. He was a great musician, a deep thinker. And my heart and soul goes out to him. And I hope he's enjoying the rainbow from well above us all. With that said, we're going to go forward. And we're going to be talking about what's happening here. And Mike, it's good to see you, Mike Bowie. Cheers to you as well. I look forward to everyone being able to speak to us. And please let us know if there's any difficulties from the internet overlords in being able to hear us or being able to respond and to contact us. I have, John Hobarth Hangy is speaking with us. Hello, John. And first time seeing you here. We're glad to see you. You said weaker. I'm not sure what you mean. If you can explain that, I'd be looking forward to seeing that comment. But on this Father's Day, I want to address something that's kind of interesting, because Joe Biden is essentially the father figure of the United States in the position of the Biden administration. He is our, who we look forward to lead this nation, to ensure our security, to provide us many of the things that fathers provide, each of us, a sense of someone who is there as a protector, someone who is there to help us, to guide us, and make sure that we are secure. And I have to ask the question, how do you feel about America in 2021? How do you feel about America in the Biden administration? Here we are halfway through the year. Do you believe we are on the right track? Are things getting better? I want to hear your comments about this, because the news media doesn't really talk to you. And I don't want to, we're not going to go over sound bites, but we're going to look at what's going on right now. Because it's very interesting that at this moment in America, not everyone agrees. Oh, John mentioned hello, and again, hello to you as well. He feels that we are becoming a weaker as a country, not more unified. And that's something I see as well. And in fact, John, you're not alone in that thought. Besides millions of Americans, oops, let me fix something here. There we go. Not only are you saying that, but we see that there are many people across the world. In North Korea, a North Korean defector has made a comment. Yeonimi Park, and I apologize if I've gotten her name wrong, happened to mention, and you may not have noticed this, coming from the New York Post on June 14th, she mentioned that looking at the United States, looking at what we are teaching our children at this time, we're seeing that the United States is more oppressive and more depressive about our nation than North Korea. And she says here in the comment, as you can see, she was struck by what she saw at Columbia University, one of our major universities, one of the leading colleges in the United States. And she was struck by the anti-Western sentiment, that the focus on political correctness was even worse than North Korea. And this is nuts. She goes on to say, I expected that I was paying this fortune, all this time and energy to learn how to think. But they are forcing you to think the way they want you to think. I realized, wow, this is insane. I thought America was different, but I saw so many similarities to what I saw in North Korea that I started worrying. You know, John, that is something that would make us think that the United States is becoming weaker, that Joe Biden has not unified America, that he is not leading America in the world, that we are failing our kids, we are failing our community, our society, that we are on the downward path. This is a problem because this is not what America is supposed to be. This is the reason we are the nation that people escape to. They leave North Korea, China, Russia, Venezuela, Cuba. They leave these socialist nations to come to the United States for freedom, for hope, for the opportunity and equality of opportunity that is afforded every single American citizen and those that we take in as legal immigrants from around the world. And we're looking at North Korean defectors saying we are failing, that we are doing what is being done in these socialist nations that are oppressive to their people, that are destructive to their people. And this is most apparent in the last 5 months under the Biden administration, how we have so negatively turned away from the principles that have made America so great. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. In my local community, back on May 5th, Corinne Kirk, and I am mentioning her by name because she is a member of the school board in my community. She is a member of the Binghamton City School Board, helping to define what is the curriculum for our children. What will our kids in K through 12, what will they learn? What is their guiding direction in America? And you know what? Her view, this member of the school board, Corinne Kirk, is saying that, well, white people are evil. Using an image from the Obama administration back in 2016, trying to imply, well, it's horrible to celebrate Cinco de Mayo, and that it's somehow bad to say that illegal immigration is opposite of celebrating an international holiday. That's a really interesting message because it falls right in line with what we're seeing from the North Korean defector telling us that we are being oppressive. And that's what Corinne Kirk is saying. She is being oppressive. And this is her message. And by the way, if you're looking for this, you won't be able to find this post anymore because Corinne Kirk, once it was pointed out in the most recent school board meeting, she deleted this post. And that tells me something. And that should tell you something. That our individuals who are in the leadership of teaching our children, of trying to guide our nation, they are so lacking in confidence that when their views, which are racist, their views that I believe are oppressive, when they are pointed out, rather than standing and trying to defend what they know is wrong, they instead delete it. and hide it from you. This is something that I saw in 2020 when I was running for an elected office, and my opponent, rather than saying that he supported defunding the police, deleted and hid his view from the public. We see the same thing with Corin Kirk here in our local school board, and I imagine and I am sure in your local community, wherever it is in the United States, you're seeing the same thing, where they hide their views from you until they have enough power to change the laws, and you have no choice. The same thing that we see from the internet overlords on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and Google. As we'll be showing you, they are trying to oppress you, and when you complain, only then will they say, oh, well, we're going to hide this from you. It's not that they're changing, it's that they're no longer going to let you see what they are doing to you. Is that unifying America? Is that making America stronger by hiding the kind of division, the kind of oppression that is out there? This, as mentioned by the North Korean defector, this PC mentality that says you must think like us or else. You must agree with us or else. And if you complain and your complaint is valid, we're just going to hide what we're doing until you no longer can do anything about it. By the way, hot chicks, it's good to see you, and we thank you for joining us here on the show today. So it's a very interesting question, and it's a very troubling question, because it's not just limited to the opinion of defectors coming into the United States. It's not just legal immigrants complaining about illegal immigrants and their impact on America. It's not just the leadership of Joe Biden, which may be wanting and lacking, the failure of our economy, the fear that has been put around the most recent pandemic. I don't believe that's it, because it's a bigger issue. Like with Corin Kirk, where we see that our school boards are being used to turn our children against American values, we see the government is being used against us. Now, you may not be familiar with this. You probably didn't see this story, and you probably forgot about this story, as the news media would like you to forget. But the FBI back in 2019 abandoned the term of Black identity extremism. In 2019, the FBI started looking towards domestic terrorism, a very big issue in America, an issue that came to the forefront in 2020, where once again we were told it's not what you see. Remember all the arsons, remember the riots, the deaths that occurred in the United States because of the BLM Antifa riots, the plot, Progressive Leader of Tomorrow riots in our nation, and individuals like David Dorn, Jessica Dottie Whitaker, the children at Atlanta and in Seattle that were killed because of the autonomous zones throughout our nation. Tyrannical, insurrectionist, autonomous zones that we were told, no, those are okay. Those were mostly peaceful. You remember CNN, as we had arson going on in the background, and CNN reporters are saying, it's mostly peaceful. It's not a big deal. That burning building behind us where a man was found dead, that's not a big deal. Forget about that. Minneapolis is doing fantastic. As people lose their livelihoods, they lose their businesses, as they no longer are able to live their lives, and fear has taken place. No, it was in 2019 that we saw then director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, saying that the FBI is changing its intent, its direction, because the question is white supremacy. It's no longer about the Black identity extremism that we know existed and has existed for many, many years. No, it's only about white supremacy, because that's where the real horror is. Don't worry about the fact that black on black crime is so high. Don't worry about the fact that we see so many problems. No, it's only white supremacy we should talk about. Matter of fact, the news, according to the AP on June 14th, you probably didn't notice this. And I ask you, tell me, my audience, did you notice the news media talking about the Columbus shooting? Columbus, Georgia, not Columbus, Ohio, Columbus, Georgia, where a 39-year-old man shot, he shot 5 people. And it wasn't a mass shooting because he did it in multiple places, but this one individual ran around and he specifically targeted white people to go on a shooting spree. Because this is the result. This is the sowing of the seeds of what we see from the Antifa, the BLM riots that have been going on in our nation since a year ago and are continuing to happen right now. This is the result. This is the fruit of the autonomous zones that exist, continue to exist at this moment in the United States. Treasonous zones that are lawless, that reject local, state, and federal laws. And Joe Biden won't mention it. You won't hear a word of this from the progressive left, who are actually instigating these events. They're telling you that, well, no, there's only the only kind of racism that exists, the only kind of domestic terrorism that exists is from white supremacists like the Ku Klux Klan, which hasn't taken over a city in the United States, which hasn't gone out and committed the crimes that we have seen. They're not going out and doing arsons. They're not burning down black businesses. They're not burning down black communities. They're not going out and killing individuals. We don't see that right now. We are seeing it from BLM. We are seeing it from Antifa and progressive leaders of tomorrow. We are seeing them do this. We're not seeing that from white supremacists. And to say that, well, all of the mass shootings in America are only happening because of white males, that is a lie. And again, I'll point you to just as recently as June 14th. That is a lie. We are seeing individuals who are directly going out and they are actively targeting individuals based on their color of their skin. As mentioned by Detective Brandon Lockhart, basically this individual, this black male, 39-year-old, went out and he says that specifically white males had taken from him, and also what he described as military-looking white males had taken from him. You know, that's the message of BLM. That's the message of the progressive left. That's intersectionality. That's the critical race theory. That whites are so evil, so bad, intrinsically by birth because of the color of their skin, that they are wrong. And that message, which has been pumped into all of our kids, that has been put onto the spotlight for the last year in all of the riots throughout this nation, and we're being told this is the right thing, as critical race theory is trying to be interjected into our schools by individuals like Corinne Kirk, that this is the result. We get individuals who are going on shooter sprees, targeting people simply for the color of their skin. And they happen to be white and black. This is a problem. Mavis mentions, Tim Pool mentioned it. I don't know about the mainstream media because I don't watch them. Well, Mavis, Tim may have mentioned it, but I know that I'm bringing it up. There really isn't anyone else who's talking about it. The mainstream media, and thank you for joining us, Mavis, there's no one really talking about this. This is an important thing. This is a big deal. But it's being buried in the news. It is being buried from us. It is being hidden. The mainstream media don't want you to talk about it. Social media ignores it. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, they have algorithms to suppress this information so that you don't get to see it. So you don't realize what's happening in the nation until it's too late, until after they have targeted individuals and said, well, no, you're the bad people. Oh, you didn't know that we were coming for you? Too bad, too late. The laws are there against you. We already have the full power of the United States government working against you because we don't like what you have to say. And that's a big deal. And that's being led by Biden and Kamala. That is being led by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar. This is the direction of the United States. This is what's happening in our nation. And I want you to understand, I'm not just coming up with these ideas because I want to show you, and I want to hear your comments about this, but let me show you why we're coming to this conclusion. Look at this. On June 15th, the White House called the Capitol riot a terrorist attack, endorses extremists, and wants people to be purged from the internet. This is a direct attack against the First Amendment because we are watching as Twitter is removing individuals like Donald Trump, like conservative voices. We've seen over 1 million individuals on YouTube and Facebook have been removed. They've been silenced because they are conservative voices and they don't agree with the mainstream media. They don't agree with Democratic Socialists of America, and they want to go out and they're removing these voices under a claim of domestic terrorism. Meanwhile, we're seeing that they haven't once mentioned anything about the autonomous zones, like the George Floyd Square in Minneapolis, like the Chaz that was in Portland, like the autonomous zones in Austin or Atlanta or in New York City. Let's think about this for a second. How many people died at the Capitol riots, which was actually mostly a protest, but at the riot itself, one person who was killed by an agent of the United States government. There was no other murders that occurred. How about we look at what happened in the Chaz in Seattle? How many people died there? 2. And you know what? One of those individuals happened to be a child. And what about the Minneapolis, the George Floyd Square, which we've covered on this program before? You know, there was, before the trial, Derek Chauvin trial, there was someone who was killed and died because the police were not allowed to come into George Floyd Square to save his life. Is that not a problem? Is that not as bad as the Capitol riots? Is that not a domestic terrorist action where law-abiding citizens are not allowed to be saved by our police because a group of individuals who have usurped the government, who have usurped power, have decided that, well, you can't come in here. If you try and save this person, there will be more violence, and they allowed someone to die. George Floyd Square, where on live TV, as we have covered on this program before, had a live video, a national media coverage of a drive-by shooting. And police were not allowed to walk into that community to try and stop that crime because, well, George Floyd, because of racism, because that's not domestic terrorism. That just happens. It's not a big deal. Because the real problem in America are the white supremacists. You know, the individuals who say, I love America. Individuals who have been labeled as white supremacists for saying that they do not agree with the progressive ideology in this nation. And you are perfectly fine to say, Mike, I don't agree with you. You're perfectly fine to say, I think that's not correct. You can tell me that you say, you know what, Mike, you're missing the point. That's what this show is for. This is what that comment is, but I would love to hear that argument. Please explain to me how it isn't domestic terrorism when we watch that there are cities that have held American citizens hostage for a year in some cases. And we have seen cities getting burned down like Minneapolis, like Seattle, like Portland, with riots in some cases for 120 days in a row. Tell me that is not the biggest problem in America right now. And we have colleges and high schools, and we have people like Corinne Kirk at school boards who are trying to program children in K through 12, and they're being told that's the way it should be, that you should be oppressed, that you should be under the thumb of these socialists, these extremists, I think that's a big deal. I think that's a problem. But instead, we see that the Biden administration has come out, and I don't know if anybody's read this, but under the Biden administration, we see that there is now a national strategy for countering domestic terrorism. And I want you to understand what they're looking at here. Because if you look at this, domestic terrorist attacks in the United States also have been committed frequently by those opposing our government institutions, which would be BLM. That would be Antifa, amongst other groups. In 1995, the largest single act of domestic terrorism in U.S. history, an anti-government violent extremist detonated a bomb at the Alfred P. Murrah federal building in Oklahoma City, killing 186 people, including 19 children. That's true. It's terrible. And this document is manipulating you because it's using the death of children to try and bring sympathy for what it's really trying to do. In 2016, an anti-authority violent extremist ambushed, shot, and killed 5 police officers in Dallas. By the way, that wasn't a white male. That was a BLM activist. That was a BLM activist shooting at officers who were trying to protect a BLM protest happening in Dallas at that time. Notice they're leaving out critical details here. A single individual committed the Oklahoma bombing. We have an individual by themselves, a black male, who attacked BLM activists trying to kill police officers in Dallas. In 2017, a lone gunman wounded 4 people at a congressional baseball practice. By the way, that was a Bernie Sanders extremist. That was a Bernie Sanders supporter. Notice that he's trying to say, well, these are all white people who did this. And then he conflates that to be, and just months ago, on January 6th, Americans witnessed an unprecedented attack against the core institutions of our democracy, the U.S. Congress. Well, wait a minute. They didn't try and kill anyone. They weren't there to kill anyone. They weren't there to destroy the United States government. There was no single group. There were no individuals who had a plan to take over America because they still don't have evidence. We've been looking at this for months. Nowhere has there been any evidence of that. In fact, no one's been charged with trying to commit treason. They've been charged with breaking and entering, disrupting the public, destruction of property. They've been charged with everything except treason, even as we're told that this is an insurrection. And we see that the Biden administration is putting forth a domestic terrorism outlook that says, well, this is all about white people. Really? That's not the problem in America. That really isn't the problem in America. You don't believe me? Let me give you some more evidence that the mainstream media doesn't want you to read. Besides the fact that I'm actually, and there will be links to all of the information we're going over with you in the description after the show. But not only is that coming from the White House, let's look at the FBI Bureau of Investigation Crime Data Explorer. And we're looking at a time period of 2009 to 2019. And looking at all violent crime, who are the offenders and who are the victims? This is coming from the FBI. And their data shows us that 228,454 black criminals tried to commit violent crime against American citizens. There were 224,720 white criminals that tried to commit violent crimes against American citizens. And the victims were 300,660 white Americans. There were 179,017 black Americans who were the victims. You know what? That doesn't sound like white supremacy to me. It sounds like there's a problem in America. Absolutely, I will give you that. And if you look at 2019 alone, there were 6,453 black criminals who committed a violent crime against American citizens. There were 4,752 white criminals who committed violent crimes against Americans. The victims being 7,543 black Americans, 5,823 white Americans. These are the victims. These are the crimes. That doesn't seem to indicate in any way, shape, or form that this is based on someone's color of skin. This isn't about racism. We're told it's about racism. We're told that this is specifically supposed to be about black versus white. Except the numbers don't show that. Not over the last 10 years, not in the last reporting in 2019. It's not real. But you're being told it's real. And we're having laws, and we're having the full power of the government used against us on this made up issue. Not to say that racism doesn't exist, but what we're not seeing is what they're telling us. There is no reality to this, that is the main problem in America. Mayhem K8 says they have eyes, yet claim to be blind. I agree with you. And by the way, thank you, Mayhem K8, for joining us. First time I've seen you on the program. And so I'm giving you actual evidence from the FBI. And I want you to see something that's very important. Again, no one is showing you this. No one is telling you this. They are eliminating this because domestic terrorism, as you just saw from the Biden administration, under the National Strategic Countering Domestic Terrorism Plan, they're trying to tell you that this is a major issue in America. Well, here is the 2019 hate crime statistics from the FBI. And you can look this up for yourself. And when you look at this, anti-black, this is hate crimes, incidents, offenses, victims. According to them, table 1, how many incidents? 1,930 in the United States for 2019. 1,009, under 2,000. There were 2,314 offenses. You know how many black people are in America? How many millions of black people are in America? How many millions of white people are in America? Hispanics? And this is the biggest problem in America. According to the FBI, going by their numbers, let me make this even more clear to you what they're trying to sell you. Looking at, again, 2019 hate crime statistics from the FBI. Looking at the offenders. Look at these crimes. These are the offenders. Matter of fact, I want to even give you a better, the biggest problem in America, what are they doing? Intimidation. These are the people who committed the crimes, the known offenders race. We're told white supremacy is the biggest problem in America. The biggest problem in America, 1,132 cases of intimidation. 1,132 cases of intimidation by whites against everyone. Let's say it's against blacks only. Intimidation being just about anything you can think of. According to 42 U.S. Code 3617, the federal statute, and we're going to get to the comments in 1 second. It's unlawful to coerce, intimidate, threaten, or interfere with any person in the exercise of enjoyment on account of his having enjoyed exercise or enjoyed, or on account of his having aided or encouraged any other person in the exercise of enjoyment, any right granted or protected. In other words, it is intimidation to stop anyone from doing anything if it's on the basis of the color of their skin. And you know what? When I look at this, here's the problem. Going by the 2016 crime in the United States, homicide, murder in the United States, black crimes, black killers, 2,570 of them killed black victims. How many white offenders killed black victims in 2016? 243. Racism is the problem in America. Remember, domestic terrorism is a problem in America. Okay, you say, well, that's 2016, Mike. What happened recently? Here we are, 2019, crime in the United States from the FBI. Homicide, murder. Black on black murder, 2,574. Whites killing blacks in America, 246. The numbers are the same as in 2016. This is not our biggest problem. Black on black crime is one of our biggest problems, but it isn't domestic terrorism. There is no epidemic of blacks being killed by whites. And if you're talking about police, you're talking about even less. You're talking about something around the number of 20 alleged cases of police abuse leading to the death of black individuals in America every year, with double that number being of police killing white individuals every year. This isn't an epidemic. And yet we have Joe Biden, we have Kamala Harris, we have Nancy Pelosi, AOC, Ilhan Omar, we have progressives like Citizen Action, like Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, otherwise known as PLOT. We have Antifa, we have BLM, trying to beat down the doors using the mainstream media and social media to tell you that, oh my God, race is the biggest problem in America. Meanwhile, people who are not Americans are telling us that is a lie. The woke message in America is a lie, that this is the tactics used by North Korea to suppress people. Maybe, am I missing the data? Is it incorrect? Am I misunderstanding it? I'm asking. Let me also go to the comments here. Mayhem K8 says, if the city map showing where the crimes are matches the map showing the demographics of areas, then that's not a coincidence. That's a fact, not racist. And Mayhem mentions they've been following us for a while. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you for that. And Mayhem goes on to say, everyone is afraid of being canceled. The truth hurts, but the truth will set you free. This is why nothing gets done and nobody has any answers. Be awake, not woke. Woke is the problem. That is not leadership. That is not helping our nation. When we look at the facts, when we look at the details, we're not saying race is not the biggest thing in America. It is not a leading factor. Again, I am not saying that there is no racism in America or in the world. It exists. Have I ever been affected by it? Yes, I have. Is that the biggest thing in America? Is that destroying America? No. Has America improved? Absolutely. We are not in the 1930s. We're not in the 1950s. In my lifetime, 53 years, we have seen improvements. And I can prove it for you really, really simple. Besides the fact that we elected a black president twice in the ultra-racist America that we are told is under besiegement by the same domestic terrorists that existed in 2009 that exist today. No, what we're being told is that America is so absolutely oppressive that racism must be fought, and it is in every aspect of our lives. Let me ask you something very simple. Have you ever seen a black and white couple on TV? Have you ever seen a black and white couple in your community? Do you know people who are married that are of mixed races? Are any of those people being beaten down? Are any of those people being, their homes being burned down, their businesses being burned down, that these people are being attacked on the streets? Because I can tell you, in my lifetime, in the 1970s, they were. In fact, friends of my family had to escape from the racists to come to New York State, to come to New York City in the Bronx, to escape that kind of racism because they were a mixed marriage. That was in the 1970s. Today, I guarantee you, if you look around your neighborhood, you look at any town, city, anywhere in America, you will find mixed race couples of every kind of mix and variation. And no one blinks. No one thinks twice. No one is trying to stop that. And that tells you how far we have gone in one man's lifetime, my lifetime, 53 years. And yet you're being told, but racism is the biggest problem in America. It's destroying America. As we elect a president, as we elect a vice president, people of color, as we have how many members in Congress that are individuals of color? How many of our leaders are individuals of color on a local, state, and federal level? How many black mayors do we have? How many women do we have who are mayors? How many of them are in all the various elected offices at the lowest level of government all the way up to the highest? But racism is the number one problem. Intersectionality is the problem. We have individuals in our government at the highest levels who are transgender, but transgenderism is in trouble. There is a problem. Am I missing something here? Because we have Joe Biden leading this nation being the dad, and dad is telling us we are racist, and yet there is no proof of racism being rampant, being overrunning our nation, overrunning our government. There is proof and examples of racism against people based on the color of their skin, if you happen to be white, that is being directed from the government. That is the source of racism that I see right now. That white people are being told that they should apologize for being white, that white people should bend the knee to others because of the color of their skin, that it is intrinsic and inescapable that if you are white, that you are some kind of privileged individual and you must beg the forgiveness of others who don't happen to be white. And you know what's the problem with that? The inherent problem, and has anyone ever said this in the news media that you know of? Has anyone actually stepped up and said this one thing? If white privilege exists, then you are inherently saying that white people are superior and people who are not white are inferior by definition. Critical race theory says and promotes white people as superior and everyone else as inferior, and that those same white individuals, white progressive elitists, must come out and protect those minorities, those non-white individuals, because they can't do it for themselves. Even in a government, even in a nation where the opportunity for equality is unparalleled in the world. It is the reason why millions of people are coming to America from every nation in the world, of every color, every religion, of every type. They are escaping to America, not from America, because we are that free and that much better off. But we have elites, progressives, and socialists that are telling us, well, no, that's not good enough. You're still intrinsically inferior because you're not white. And if you think I am wrong about that, please explain to me how. How can you subscribe to this political ideology and say that whites are guilty of being privileged, and not say at the same time, well, that means they're superior and therefore everyone else is inferior, which is racism? If you think I am wrong, I want to hear that argument. I want to hear that and understand it, because it seems very direct. I understand that the progressives will never say that directly to you. I understand that they don't want to admit that directly, but that is the core of their statement. And that those white progressives, have to protect you. And if you think I'm wrong, look at the majority of the crowds that are in the BLM, that are in Antifa, that are in all of the violent riots that are ongoing, and count how many of them are white versus how many are black. How many times we have seen whites go in and start riots and be called on that by blacks who live in those communities. Look at the leadership of this nation. Tell me I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, tell me why I'm wrong. Mayhem K8 says, my fear is that this whole thing, teaching kids critical race theory, is going to make people racist, not cure it. How do you make a white supremacist? And he mentions that they believe that Biden is racist, and I think that's correct. I think the entire approach is racist. And I work on several boards, and I'm fighting that right now. And I see in colleges and in universities across this nation where they're trying to interject critical race theory, intersectionality. They're trying to introduce racism into math. Math is now racist. 2 + 2 = racism. You don't believe me? Look up the stories. It's there. If you don't believe me, look at the 2021 curriculum of every college and university and every high school in the United States right now. And look at what they are saying. Look at what they are trying to teach your children. Look at what Corinne Kirk has already said about what she thinks as a member of a school board. This is what we are facing in America. This is our future. This is what Joe Biden has been ushering in. And again, I'm showing you the facts. And if you're thinking, well, Mike, there's something I'm not understanding this. I saw the FBI data. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it. Maybe these 246 whites who are almost identical to the number 243 whites in 2016, maybe they're just trying to kill more black people, that this is the racism that's out there. Except that isn't correct, because according to USA Today, in their fact check of this statement that meme you may have seen, which says that blacks killing blacks 97%. Well, guess what? It is about 90%. Whites tend to kill whites at about 80%. Blacks kill blacks about 90%. That overwhelmingly, the number of people who are dying that we see, the problem that we see here in 2019, this is black on black crime. Overwhelmingly, some 6,000 blacks were killed by blacks, not by whites, not by racism. That's black on black crime. That's the numbers. That's the truth. And yet we're being told there is an epic of domestic terrorism. Let me ask you, I'll say it again. When was the last time you saw the Ku Klux Klan have an autonomous zone in the United States where they have taken over a city or even a square block of the United States? Name one location anywhere in the United States. Because I guarantee you, if it existed, every news media station, MSNBC, CNN, ABC, CBS, they would be spotlighting that every second of every day. Meanwhile, they don't even want to tell you that right now there are at least 6 autonomous zones in the United States, areas where every local, state, and federal law are being broken, and they don't want you to notice it. They don't want to even tell you about the fact that there are individuals who have been taught racism, who have been taught that whites are so evil that they need to be eliminated, and they are doing it. That they have encouraged criminals, insane individuals like this one in Columbus. And you know what they want to do about that? They are so cowardly that they won't even mention that this 39-year-old man was black. They're hiding that from you. They don't want to tell you up front that this was a black man, because I guarantee you, if this was a white man killing blacks, the first thing you would see on there is a 39-year-old white male. But you're not seeing that. They're saying he's a 39-year-old man. They're hiding the information. They are twisting the information to achieve an agenda. And when you pay attention, they hide it from you so that they can get what they want, which I believe is power. Mayhem mentions, I agree with you. People, the problem isn't that, quote, powers that be, unquote, are unaware or dumb. Don't underestimate them. They aren't stupid. They're just corrupt. The only color that matters to them is green, at our expense, like in taxes. And that racism is a cash cow, and I believe it is. Again, I will say to everyone watching this, you don't have to agree with me. You don't have to believe I'm correct. You can call onto the show at 607-242-1582. The phone is on. Or you can leave a comment like we've seen Mavis or Mayhem, Hot Chicks. We have seen from individuals like John and Michael Bowie. You too can make a comment on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. As long as the internet overlords allow you to see this, as long as they're not trying to hold this up, I want you to look at this. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. If we're misunderstanding the data, the facts, the truth. Because every time we look at the truth, we see something that doesn't match the lie that we are being told. Because you don't think I'm right? Here you go. New York Post, front page, Saturday, June 19th. Children going to buy candy caught in crosshairs of assassination attempt. Guess what? Black on black crime. That's not domestic terrorism. That isn't domestic terrorism. The problem in America, it's not gun control. That's not the problem. The problem is we are creating a bigger problem. We are, as Mavis had mentioned, we are creating this anti-white agenda which creates racism. This is not what Martin Luther King wanted. That's not part of his dream of having little white children, little black children playing and living and growing up together. It's not. It's not Mahatma Gandhi's belief that people with different religious beliefs, like Hindus and the Pakistanis and the Muslims, can live together in a nation, that peace can be had. Can you imagine that? That's not what he was promoting. That's not what they were saying. If you think I'm wrong, and if you think Mahatma Gandhi would have approved of this domestic terrorism action, this critical race theory that makes whites superior and to condemn them and makes others inferior and making minorities inferior. If you think Mahatma Gandhi would agree with that, please explain to me how. If you think Martin Luther King would agree with that, please explain to me how, because their every single word disagreed with that. And the leadership of the United States isn't standing up to it. Mayhem mentions, thank God those girls weren't killed, and I agree with you. Thank God they weren't okay. And yes, this is a culture issue. It's not a culture issue, a color issue. Bojo, hello Bojo, mentions that Democrat school systems, news media are destroying the country, and I agree with that. Because our fathers have fought. They have, historically, our fathers in this nation and our president, historically, as the symbolic father of our nation, are there to protect us, to lead us, to guide us, to help us understand the very best in our nature and to encourage that, whether through business or social interactions. That is ideally what we should have from a president. Instead, we have a government under the current progressive ideology that is rejecting that. That is telling us you can't achieve that. In fact, if you try to achieve equality, that you are racist and you will be denounced for that. That they want equity, which has nothing to do with equality. People need to look up those words. It's not about that. Let me show you what I mean as an example. This is a fake letter. A fake letter. Let me give you the background here. A black student is alleged to have made graffiti on a school, which happens to be Seton Central High School here in the southern tier of New York. He got caught. He was punished because of that. Because he committed a crime, which is called vandalism, because he put graffiti on a school building. And we have individuals, as identified in this tweet, who decided to instigate racism, to promote racism by making a fake apology and to emphasize and turn this criminal act, it is a crime, this vandalism, and try to instigate racial instability by making it about the kid's color of skin. Let me ask you, do you think that's right? Let me ask you, do you think that promotes anything? What is the lesson being taught to our children by these political instigators? That it's okay to commit crimes as a person of color, that if anyone punishes you for committing a crime, a social crime, an actual crime, that you should be absolved of that because of the color of your skin. And if anyone questions it, well, it must be because they are racist rather than you broke the law. And let me ask you, what do you think the future outcome, the future outlook, if we were to predict the future, what is that child who's being told that it is excused, that breaking the law, that committing a crime is okay because of the color of your skin? And that anyone who would dare question you about that, anyone who would hold you accountable for that, well, they're doing it because they're racist. What do you think that kid's future is going to be? Do you think that's going to be the next Thurman, one of our next Supreme Court justices? Or do you think that's going to be another George Floyd? Which one is more probable, do you think? Looking at some of the comments. And remember, folks, anyone can comment, whether you agree or disagree. I know several of the comments are in agreement. If you disagree, please let me know. But Mavis had mentioned that it's only a matter of time before they cancel Martin Luther King for being too white. We've already seen people starting to make that statement, to say that Martin Luther King was not correct. And if you listen to individuals like Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, if you listen to individuals like BLM and Antifa, they absolutely disagree with the methodology and the ideology of Martin Luther King. Mayhem says, maybe we should skip critical race theory and get to those reading levels up, which would be a great thing. And that Mayhem also goes on to say that the sheep think that the shepherd is their friend. This is a problem that we have in America, that we have school boards who are absolutely the members of school boards that have a racist political agenda, that we have individuals in our communities, members of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, that are going around actively trying to instigate racial instability for their power so that they can get more power, so that they can assume greater responsibility over your individual life. And destroying our children, destroying the future of our community to do so. Because this is not a benefit. Making up this kind of document is not helping people. You can say it's BLM and that blacks need to be protected, and this isn't the way to do it. And if you want to ask me how I think this document, what is the result? It will create more racism than it is removing. It is not addressing a racist situation. It is creating a racist situation. That's what I think this individual has done. Now, do you agree with me? Maybe not. Do you think I'm right? Maybe not. But tell me why. Don't give me a bullet point. I'm not going through bullet points. I'm giving you evidence. Please tell me how I am misunderstanding the evidence that is in front of us at a local, at a state, at a federal level. How we are being how we have data that is being misrepresented. We're getting platitudes like from the Biden administration, who is there to try and protect our society and our nation and be the shining beacon for the world. And we are watching colleges, and we are watching the Biden administration. We're watching Kamala Harris. We are watching BLM and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the socialists of America, Democratic Socialists of America, are destroying our nation and destroying our nation's future. Marvin mentions that BLM is the new KKK. I personally agree with that. In watching what they have done, not the message, but watching what they have done in the last year, BLM is responsible for billions of dollars of destruction, for dozens of lives being killed, for the destruction of the livelihood of Black communities across this nation, as well as other communities. They have done more damage than any other group in the last 2 decades. And yet our question is, well, we should be fighting white supremacy, which I don't say, and please don't misunderstand me. I am not supporting white supremacy. But I'm also telling you that our focus is in the wrong place, and we are creating more problems than we are resolving, and our leadership should be fighting against that, because that's what my dad did. That's what I believe your dad did. And as the symbolic dad of America, well, Joe Biden should be fighting against that too. But he seems preoccupied. So let me go to, and I do see Mayhem mention critical race theory equals you're white, so you're horrible, you're Black, so don't even try because it's stacked against you. And that, I do believe, is the message that we see. That's why we see them. Look at the billions that have been donated to BLM. What do we see coming from that? How many schools have been opened up by BLM? How many programs has BLM started on a national or even local level to protect the community, to get rid of drugs in the community, to encourage kids to go to college? Where are those programs? How much of that money has been spent? The billions they have collected, how much of that money has been spent on improving the education and the livelihood of our children? How many after-school programs have they created to give kids an alternative to gangs? Because I can't find that data anywhere, but I can show you Patricia Cullors, the founder of BLM in the United States as a communist socialist organization, and I can show you the 5 houses that she was able to buy miraculously from money from running BLM. But I can't show you where BLM is actually helping communities. So critical race theory has a problem. But this is about how do you feel in America. And so let me ask you again, do you feel safer today? After a year of the riots, do you think that we're in a better place? Do you think America is more unified? Because we were promised that the Biden-Kamala Harris administration would make us safer, would make us more unified. On a domestic level, do you feel more safe? Do you feel more unified? Do you feel closer to your neighbor? Do you think that your local community, your state community, our federal government, do you think it's more unified, that it's doing a better job of helping people? Or do you see more people being isolated, pushed to the sides, driven to extremism, labeled as extremists, whether they are or they are not, and being objectified, being labeled and denounced because they don't follow a very small elite group's definition of what should be America, because they're not bowing to a small group of people who have a very extremist point of view. And quite honestly, BLM, Antifa, who are socialists, who are promoting, they're created to promote communism. That is by the definition of the creators of the organization. That is their goal. And that is not about America. That isn't about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's not about free speech or being able to defend yourself. And if you think it is, please explain to me how. Please. I say it all the time, but you can call in 607-242-1582. Call in and tell me why. I truly want to hear your opinion. I'm not here to attack people. I will attack issues, and I am passionate about this, just as you are watching this, but I'm not here to attack an individual. I'm here to understand. I'm here to see what you have to say. Just like Marvin has, just like Mavis has, just like Hot Chicks and Bojo and Mayhem. I want to hear what you have to say, folks. From anywhere in the world. Our friends in Great Britain, across the pond, please speak up, because I know that we are seeing America export BLM and Antifa and racism to Great Britain. I know that we're seeing that being exported to France. And we are seeing those world leaders fighting against it. Hello, executive session. It's good to meet you. Oh, hey, it's Larry. Okay. Hey, Larry. I'm glad to see you with us today. And it's been a little while, Larry. I hope you're having a good Father's Day. I hope you're having a good Sunday. And it's always good to see you here with us. And don't forget, folks, even though I believe Facebook is suppressing at least part of the data today, and at least one of the streams that they have shut down, from what I can see in the data that I am receiving, please remember, on Facebook, on Twitter, on DLive, you can comment, you can respond, as long as the internet overlords are not shutting you down, as at least one of the channels that we speak to is being shut down at this moment, because they don't want you to think. Thank you for the good messages, Larry, on Father's Day. Sadly, I'm not a father. I wish I were. But, thank you for the thought, though. So I wanted to mention, in talking about the leadership of our nation, in talking about where they are directing us, where is our symbolic father figure in Joe Biden, which is a scary and terrifying thought to me. Where are they leading us? Well, I'll give you an example of where they're leading us. To Macy Gray. Many people may know who Macy Gray is. Many people may not. Just so you know, Macy Gray is a singer. She is an entertainer. Her job, which she is good at, is singing songs. Let me say it again. An entertainer, Macy Gray, a singer. Her only job is singing. The only thing she's qualified at, as far as we know, is singing. She's not an elected official. She doesn't do anything with politics. She is an entertainer. And this entertainer is busy trying to get the American people to accept that we have to get rid of the United States flag. That the United States flag is a symbol of oppression, that it is racist. And if you think I'm making this up, here's the article. She says it is a symbol of oppression, of opposition to the abolishment of slavery. That's the Confederate flag. And she says that she believes that that the American flag is the same, that we don't see it much anymore. However, in January 6th, when individuals stormed the nation, they were waving the American flag. And now the American flag has become a symbol. The American flag has been hijacked as a code for a specific belief. God bless those believers, they can have it. Like the Confederates, it's tattered, dated, divisive, and incorrect. The United States flag is, according to Macy Gray, divisive. She believes that the American flag no longer represents democracy and freedom. It no longer represents American citizens. Can you imagine that? She goes on to say that since Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico have been denied statehood, that the flag is not representative. And it's because, well, in DC, African Americans would be the representatives in Congress, and that Puerto Rico is Hispanic. And so that would be all others. And she presumes that individuals are because of the color of their skin, they could only be Democrats, because there could be no Africans, no Black Americans in DC that could be potentially a Republican, because there could be no Puerto Ricans who could possibly be Republicans. Hello, I am a Black Puerto Rican Republican. Hello, we exist. Please, Macy Gray, recognize that's a racist statement. That assigning a political belief to a group of people without any opportunity for them to be anything else is wrong. And then to assign and assume that Washington, D.C., which by the Constitution is prohibited from becoming a state for a lot of reasons, it only shows your ignorance to say that, well, they don't want D.C. because it's going to be Black people who will be representatives there, which you don't know. And more importantly, it's not true. Puerto Rico isn't a state because Puerto Rico hasn't voted to become a state. They've had many votes on this. That is a fact. Puerto Rico has decided multiple times to be a commonwealth. It has nothing to do with Congress. They get to vote on that as a commonwealth, and they do, and they reject statehood over and over again. That is a fact. It has nothing to do with the fact that Puerto Rico is Hispanic. It has nothing to do with people's color of skin. So you're lying. Macy Gray has no idea what she's talking about, which is okay because she's an entertainer. I don't expect her to know what she's talking about because she's there to sing a song. She's not a teacher. She's not an educator. She's not a politician. She's not a political commentator. She has no idea what she's talking about. And yet she is there trying to say that we need to change our flag because the flag isn't good enough, because it's not Black enough, because it is not about minorities. This is what our kids are saying. This is what they're being taught. And as Larry mentioned, what is she talking about? These people need to sit down. She mentions, is Tim Scott not Black and Republican? Mayhem mentions she's an idiot. And I agree. But here's the problem. Our kids are being told this is the message. This is who they are looking to. They are looking to people like Macy Gray as some kind of significant individual. Look at what we see in basketball. LeBron James is seen as some kind of political figure. Entertainers are considered to be political figures without any experience in politics, without, as we can see with Macy Gray, without proper education, without knowing what's going on. And they are trying to change the way America is where we're going. And this is part of the critical race theory. This is part of the progressive socialist ideology. This is about that division of America because this is what they are saying. The flag, America is corrupt, it's racist, we have a problem with domestic terrorism from white supremacists, and the flag is part of that. Except it isn't. And it never has been. And it's not accurate. If you want to tell me that you believe that America could be better, I will agree with you. If you tell me that you want to fight racism in the world and in the United States, I will agree with you. If you tell me that we want to improve people's lives, I will agree with you. But if you want to tell me that the nation where millions of people wait in line for 20 years to become a part of, from every nation in the world, and what is it, 20 million illegal people have illegally entered this nation because it is that much better than where they are, because it is that much more free. And you want to tell me that that's a racist nation? I need proof because it ain't there. The FBI doesn't have the proof. Our schools don't have the proof. It doesn't exist, but they are trying to make it. And we have our leaders like Biden trying to change that. And I really want to hear someone, if you think I'm wrong, again, I keep saying this, I want to hear the voice that's saying that, because I know the media is saying that I'm wrong. I know that the news is trying to convince you and I that this is wrong, but I don't see this from people. Because when I talk to Democrats one-on-one, when I talk to moderates one-on-one, when I speak to libertarians and conservatives and Republicans one-on-one, no one agrees with this. But when I talk to socialists, they agree with it. When I talk to BLM, when I speak to members of Antifa and progressive leaders of tomorrow, when I talk to them, they agree with it. And they are incredibly the smallest sliver of America that I see. Anne mentions that, yeah, Facebook is not showing this stream at all. No wonder it's so much smaller. And that's because Facebook, this is something that Facebook does not agree with. And yet again, how do you make America more racist? You ignore the First Amendment. You censure people who don't say what you want to say. When someone is there saying America is a great nation and we are not a racist nation and we can be a symbol of freedom, of equality, if you're saying that, Facebook doesn't want it out there. There are internet social media giants as well as political figures who don't want you to hear that message. They do not want you to look at the facts, the details, and say, oh my God, this critical race theory, this intersectionality is divisive, that it creates more racism, more isms and is. It is a function of destroying and dividing our nation and harming our people, not making it better. And I'm showing you sources for everything that I am saying. So if they want to say that this is misinformation, then please go to the New York Times, go to the Daily Post, go to Reuters, go to the BBC in Britain. I'm using mostly left-leaning sources. I am using major world sources of news. I'm going to the White House directly and providing this information to you. And they'll say, well, that's misleading. I'm giving you direct quotes. But they want you to believe, well, no, it's not true. It's fake news because it wasn't approved by the very people who are trying to misguide you and mislead you. And people say, well, it must not be true. I mean, why would they not show it to you? Why would Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, why would they try and censor it? It must be untrue because they're trying to look out for us. And look at all the stories that we have seen that have come out where 6 months prior, like Hunter Biden's laptop, it's not true until 4 months later, and then suddenly it is true. We keep hearing all these stories. Well, it's not true. Trump had this Ukraine phone call. He committed treason, except it's not true. They told us this for months, and then they turned around and said, it's not true. They told us the Wuhan lab, that is just a conspiracy theory, until now they tell us it might be true. It's not about them telling you the truth. They're using their positions as a shield to deny you the opportunity to critically think. They're telling you, read the headline, do what we say, and don't think about it. Because they know if you think about this, you won't agree 100%, but you're going to have a question. And critical race theory and trying to get rid of our flag and trying to make up history and to redefine the Constitution and our laws is their goal, and that is the problem. Not saying that America can't be better, but I'm telling you, that's not the path. Michael Bowie mentions, any administration that steals an election does not have our best interests, wishes at heart, which I cannot confirm or deny. Because if I did, then I'd be wiped off of YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook instantly. Which should tell you something. In a nation where you have the freedom of speech, where our nation leads the world because we can criticize, or we're supposed to be able to criticize, our leaders, in that nation, we can't even say what we think about an election. Although I have pointed out on this program before, in 2016, in many elections, where in 2000, where we have seen Democrats and socialists absolutely criticize an election on every level, at every detail, to fight it in the courts. And you could talk about that all day long, but I can't talk about the 2020 election. Otherwise, I will be removed. There is a problem, folks. And again, the theoretical father figure of the United States, theoretically Joe Biden, possibly Kamala Harris, are helping to foster that misconception of what freedom of speech is and who can use it. And I do want to talk about Joe Biden for a moment here, because let me really focus on this, because again, one of the themes of the show today is America stronger? Are we more unified or not? And I want to really address this a bit, because we spoke about this once before. Because it's not just domestic terrorism that's a question. It's not just the violence that we're seeing on the streets of New York City as people are being assassinated and threatening children. It's not just about our borders, where we have potentially millions trying to enter our nation, and the doors have been flung open, even as children are being abused. And I say this often on the show, and it is true. It is child abuse. We have encouraged and allowed child abuse, people sending their children 1,000 miles or more with drug dealers and sex traffickers, and they're sending them across our borders, and we are accepting those kids. And every time we accept those kids and stick them in cages, the very same cages that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez denounced just a year and a half ago, those very same cages are filled with kids right now, and we are afraid as a nation to say, this is child abuse. Stop abusing your children, sending them by themselves on 1,000-mile treks, being lost in the desert, and we don't even know how many have been lost forever. That's child abuse. And we are not saying this, and our leader, our figurative father figures, are not leading us and helping us and protecting us. And let me ask you, Joe Biden came out and said, as we brought it up, he has been trying to protect, he's supposed to be protecting America, our security, our safety. On day one of his administration, as we reported on January 22nd, he was sending troops into Syria, as we discussed in this program. And this is important because he helped to destabilize the Middle East. The Middle East has, by definition, no matter how you want to define it, it has emphatically and definitively and empirically become more dangerous. And I know many progressives are like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who tells us that the literal, figurative, factual, mathematical truth is not important. What's important is what you feel. Well, that's a lie. The fact is that what you do and what the facts are is more important. And we have seen from day one, the Biden administration has sent troops into Syria and has increased the amount of insecurity in the Middle East. At the same time, our theoretical father figure has gone around and he has embarrassed the United States. Let's talk about his gaffe at the G7 summit, which you may say, Mike, that's not such a big deal that he's trying to introduce, he's asking people to reintroduce the South African president even after he has been directly and obviously been introduced. And you say, well, that's not really that important. That's not a big deal. Except it shows a lack of, if Biden is completely there mentally, then that means he's not paying attention. It means he's disrespecting other world leaders because he's not paying attention to the conversation, that he doesn't think that they are equal, or he has a mental issue. You can go about it either way, but it's more than just a gaffe when you are the leader of one of the most powerful nations in the world and you are screwing up something that simple. Either you disrespect the people who are there or you are mentally incapable of keeping up with what's going on. Neither one instills any kind of security, any kind of confidence. It doesn't make those leaders more likely to be in favor of what you have to say. And what about what we saw, you may recall, because it didn't end there. Joe Biden then went on, and I want to show you this image a little better. Do you remember that image? Right here. Joe Biden being scolded, not by China this time, not by Russia this time, not by North Korea this time, but in fact being scolded by France, by Emmanuel Macron. France, one of the great allies of the United States, Macron, is scolding Joe Biden, who does nothing to defend himself. And we are told that this is misleading, that it's been miscaptioned, that this is somehow a false message. Don't let your lying eyes believe it, because look, here's a picture of them smiling. They can't be smiling if they disagree. Are you kidding me? Just because they have a positive photo op, and when the cameras aren't there for the photo op, and they're being honest and serious with each other, that you can't tell me that their honest opinion is that there's a problem, that France has a problem with the United States, as they have actively been rejecting critical race theory, BLM, and intersectionality. They have, in France, actively fought against these. They are restricting that. In Great Britain, they are actively fighting against and restricting and rejecting these things. And they are coming, and they acknowledge it is coming from America. And you mean to tell me that, oh, it can't be a problem. These countries love America. Because when they have a photo op, they love America. And when they're private, well, they don't. You know, you say, Mike, you just misunderstand. You just don't get it. Let me put this on. And this isn't tinfoil. Here's the explanation from Snopes.com, saying, did Macron scold Biden at the NATO summit? Well, no, you misunderstand. It's miscaptioned. And their answer for this is that no one actually heard the conversation that they were having. That it's just one photograph. And all the photo ops, well, they show a different story. Private images of when they're not being public, well, you know, that shows us something entirely different. But you can't possibly understand that this is misleading you somehow. Meanwhile, they also admit no one knows what they actually said. How can you tell me that an image that a conversation you cannot hear, an image that is showing an emotional outburst, and a negative emotional outburst at that, how can you tell me, well, you can't judge that because it's not official? Let me ask you, when was the last time that when the United States has talked with Russia, you know, where Joe Biden has actively created more political strife by telling the leader of Russia that he is a killer? By the way, I don't know how you think you might improve international relations by telling someone that they are a killer. That's not the best way to start a conversation. I think you're a soulless beast. By the way, do you think you'll behave now? Will you help my country out? Do you want to do a trade deal? I don't think so. Imagine if you were going to buy a car, and the car dealer came up to you and said, I think you're a soulless beast, but I got a car. You want to buy it? Would you buy it from them? Would you even entertain a conversation with them? But meanwhile, you get, and still, even with that kind of an insult against a world leader and a nation, you still see photos with Putin and Biden being cordial. Am I suddenly supposed to think that they're best friends, that they're on a good basis? As one person is saying you are evil incarnate? Let's get real here. So Snopes is saying, you can't judge. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. That's why photos are taken. Because you can tell things that aren't being said. You can understand that indication. And I'm showing you these facts. And by the way, if you try and look this up, it's really interesting. Because when you try and look this up on Google, under Macron scolds Biden, it is almost impossible to find this photo. There's only one image of it. What you will see instead is that Google is telling you, see, they are friends. There is no scolding. Everything is okay. Are you kidding me? This was an international image. International. Look at this image. This is a Getty image. It is international. It is famous. And yet, if you're looking for it, you can barely find this. And if you're looking for it by name under Google, you will find everything except that. The only thing Google will let you know is, well, this should be misleading. That they are hiding this from you actively. That they are telling you, don't believe your eyes, don't investigate for information, don't try and find out the truth, because there is no truth to be told. They don't even want you to know that this was a story, because in 6 months, you won't even be able to find this photo. In 6 months, it won't exist, because they don't want you to think. And that is a problem. That is a massive problem, folks. If you think I'm wrong, tell me why. I say it all the time, 607-242-1582, call in. Or as you can see with Mayhem, as you can see with Larry, Ann Field, Mike Bowie, Bojo, Hot Chicks, Marvin, you can comment. And I know that Facebook is restricting this right now actively, denying people the opportunity to speak. But go to YouTube, go to DLive, go to Twitter, speak. It is your voice. I want to hear it, even if it disagrees with me, maybe even more so. Or call in, 607-242-1582. I'm not here to beat you up. This is a conversation, as we're having, as you can see with the people who are commenting. This is a conversation. I just want you to realize what is happening, because these things are not making us safer. When we have individuals like Macron, who represents France, one of the greatest allies of the United States, dating back to our founding, when he's scolding our leaders, and our leaders are doing nothing. Nothing. Biden is not defending himself. He's not standing up for the United States. He's not even standing up for the ideas that he is proposing. That is not helping us. Not when we know that Biden is being laughed at. Not just because he can't walk up a flight of stairs, but because he's picking fights and he doesn't even know what the conversations are. And I mean, let's think about what he's talking about. What is this leader of our nation? Let's think about the security of this nation. How about when Joe Biden, he went and wanted to protect America by telling Putin that cyber attacks are off limits. Russia should not be committing cyber attacks against the United States. Guess what? The country of Russia didn't commit cyber attacks against the United States, shutting down our pipeline, cutting off fuel from American citizens, and extorting our fuel companies for millions of dollars. The country of Russia didn't do it. There's no evidence to even suggest that they were involved in it. So telling the leader of Russia to not commit an attack, a cyber attack against the United States, really isn't effective. It's not protecting you. That is just a media photo op. It is a headline that means nothing and does nothing for you. It is not protecting America because the source of the problem isn't the person he's targeting. But here's the other part of this that's also important to understand. Biden wasn't explicit about which areas he wanted out of bounds, but spoke of 16 kinds of infrastructure, an apparent reference to the 16 sectors designated as critical by the U.S. Homeland Security, including telecommunications, healthcare, food, and energy. Let me think about this for a second. So you're telling a nation that you have told their leader that they are soulless, that they are a killer, that you're telling him you cannot commit acts of war, you cannot commit sabotage against the United States, your enemy, by doing X. Okay, so you're trying to establish a summit idea like with nuclear weapons, where there is a prohibition, and everyone says, we will not use nuclear weapons. You're saying, well, cyber attacks are like nuclear weapons, and Russia cannot use that to attack American citizens and American businesses and American infrastructure, which they never have anyway. So you're telling a nation not to do something that they have not done. That is a fact. They have not done this. And you're telling them, don't do that. Okay. And you're telling them, don't do that to these 16 very specific things. You have just told them, you have just told anyone who wants to cripple America, here's the 16 things you need to target. Tell me, how does that make you safer? You're pointing out the weaknesses of the United States and saying, don't attack these things that we can't protect. That America is weak. That we are not able to protect ourselves and our infrastructure, so don't target food, healthcare, energy, and telecommunications, among another 12 other items. They are off limits. Well, that's the very first thing they're going to attack. Let's think about that. If you happen to be a hacker, if you are someone who's trying to commit extortion, if you're a criminal, someone who actively breaks the law and has no regard for the law, then let me ask you, do you think that person is going to say, oh my God, Joe Biden said don't do this, I guess I won't do it? Or do you think they're going to say, oh, that's what I should target? That's where the money is going to be? When I want to commit an extortion and I want to break into this and I want to destroy America, these are the things I need to target? Because if you don't agree with that, if you think that Joe Biden is protecting America, you probably think that creating more gun laws that inhibit and target law-abiding citizens, you think that creates less gun violence, which is also empirically, factually, absolutely incorrect, as we have covered many times on this program, with data from states and the federal government. It just isn't true. Telling criminals, here is another law that you cannot break, does not stop criminals from breaking the law. It does not stop the criminally insane from breaking the law. That is a fact. And if you think I'm wrong, well, then just go back to Columbus, Georgia, where a 39-year-old black man shot people because of the color of their skin. Racism is basically illegal. Hate crimes are illegal. It is killing or attempting to kill people is a crime, and this psycho did it anyway. And you want to tell me that this is by Biden saying, don't attack U.S. infrastructure, that suddenly no one's going to attack American infrastructure, that the criminals and the deranged aren't going to target that directly? He actually did more damage to the United States than anything else. This is insane. If you think I'm wrong, please comment, call in, tell me why I'm wrong. If you're seeing the show after it being live, leave a comment. I want to hear this. Please do. Let me ask you something. Have you considered what's going to happen with the Iran nuclear deal? Do you feel safer with or without the Iranian nuclear deal? A deal that, as created in 2015 by the Obama administration, a deal that said that Iran could make ICBMs, something that they don't have right now, that they could create missiles to take bombs and drop them on the United States, which is something they can't do at this moment. And the Iran nuclear deal allowed them to do that. And Iran was about 1 year or less from making a nuclear weapon. And we gave Iran, the global leader of terror in the world, universally accepted. That is an absolute fact. Everyone knows this. It is documented. Everyone in the world knows Iran is the leading sponsor of global terror in the world. And under the Iran nuclear deal of 2015, under the Obama administration with Joe Biden as vice president, we gave them $450 billion. That then Secretary John Kerry directly told the American news media in January of 2016 that Iran was going to use that money in part to create more global terror. That's what the Democrats said. That's what the Democratic Socialists said. That's what the what the Obama administration said. That's what we saw. And it happened. Just like when we gave Palestine $75 million, they went and turned around and bought 4,000 rockets to commit acts of terror against Israeli citizens. Whether you agree or disagree with the government of Israel, the Palestinians, the Hamas, took the money from the United States and bought 4,000 rockets to attack and kill innocent civilians. In 2015, Iran took $450 billion from the United States and used it to commit global terror. Is this a bad deal? Dow, hello, Dow. Dow mentions that the Iran nuclear deal is a horrible idea. And I have to tell you, it is. Let's think about this. And right this second, right now, the Biden administration, having seen the proof from 2015 to today, having seen that Iran, once it gets more money, increases the amount of global terror in the world, having seen that Hamas, which is supported by Iran, goes, when they get money from the United States, they go and they commit more global terror. Knowing that as a fact, what is the Biden administration doing right now? They are negotiating a new Iran nuclear deal to provide Iran with more money for more global terror. That is a fact. Do not believe me? No problem. Here is Politico. Politico. For weeks, Iran and American diplomats have been negotiating a return to the accord being the Iran nuclear deal, in the Austrian capital through European intermediaries. They are actively, at this moment, working on this. If you think I'm on the wrong year, here's the article. This is from Politico. New Israeli world leader. World powers must wake up on Iran nuclear deal. June 20th, today, at 7:26 a.m. The new Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, is telling the world that the Iran nuclear deal is a bad idea, that this will be a problem. And I want you to understand, we have a new leader of Iran at this moment, a man by the name of Ibrahim Raisi. And this is what Israel's Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, has to say about this guy. Of all the people that the Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei could have chosen, because he chooses who is the president of Iran, of all the people he could have chosen, he chose the hangman of Tehran, the man infamous among Iranians and across the world for leading the death committees that executed thousands of innocent Iranian citizens for years. Think about that. We are looking at Iran has just elected or more likely, the Ayatollah of Iran has selected a hard-line terrorist who is willing to kill thousands of his own people to be in charge of the United States at the time that the United States, in negotiations with the United States, at the same time that the United States is trying to renegotiate a Iran nuclear deal that will fund global terror. What do you think is going to be the outcome with that? That someone who is willing to kill thousands of their own Iranian citizens in a country where the Ayatollah has promised to destroy and burn down all of America, whether you're a socialist or progressive or anyone else, they won't destroy America because you're not their kind of religion. And we're going to give a hardliner who's willing to kill his own people, who in a country that is dedicated to destroying our country, we're going to give them billions of dollars and allow them to build missiles that they do not have at the moment to be able to reach our cities and kill our citizens. What do you think is going to happen? And our only ally in the Middle East, even without Netanyahu, every leader that runs our only ally, Israel, in the Middle East, is telling us that these people want to kill you. Do not give them the money to kill you. And we have the Biden administration that is more than happy to try and kill you. And by the way, the news media isn't telling you about this. Because you have to go to The Guardian to even find out about what's going on. That Ibrahim Raisi is a hardline troublemaker, that he's a problem, that he's done mass executions. He was involved in mass executions in 1988, and that he is a pawn of the supreme leader of Iran. That this is a problem. But if you go to the United States news, if you go to theoretically one of the leading news agencies in the United States, we're talking about the New York Times, for Biden, the Iranian hardliner may be the best path to restoring the nuclear deal. Is this not stupid? We just saw that we know that Iran is a global terror. We have a history that when we fund them, they use it to create more global terror. We know that they are telling us that they want to kill us directly. These are all facts. There is no question about it. And even if you want to use Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's 60 Minutes definition that truth doesn't matter, your feelings matter, even if you feel like this could be an idea that might be good, you cannot escape that the Iranians feel like they need to kill. The Iranian government feels like they need to wipe America out, including the Democratic Socialists. And we are now, and the New York Times is telling us this is our best choice. This is a great idea. Hey, ma'am, thank you for joining us, by the way. And the New York Times is telling you that this is a great idea. By the way, when you look at the article by the New York Times, okay, when you look at this article from the New York Times from June 19th, 2021, by David E. Sanger, what you will not find is a description of Ibrahim Raisi having committed the atrocities that this is from The Guardian. The Guardian tells you that this man is responsible, and they identify that he's done mass executions of his own people in 1988. That the Israeli, on the Politico, we're being told that this man is a terrorist. The New York Times doesn't have time to tell you that. They're too busy telling you that this is a good thing. that this will give it. The best thing that could happen is this man, who every international news agency is telling you that he is a mass killer. The New York Times is telling the American people, don't worry, he's a good guy to make a deal with. Let's give him money because he definitely won't use the money to his advantage to increase global terror. And we can trust him to not make a nuclear weapon as he wants to eliminate the American people and everyone in America that doesn't believe what he believes. Folks, seriously, this is what we are seeing. This is what the news media is telling you. Do you feel safer? Maybe you believe the New York Times. I don't know. And, Mayhem, who was just with us, had mentioned that we should remember that people were sending Joe Biden condolences because former President Trump killed an Iranian general, Soleimani, who was also a domestic terrorist, who killed his own people, who killed people internationally. A known and wanted terrorist. Trump killed him. People said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Joe Biden, please fix this. Iran, how bad. It's so terrible for Iran that a terrorist was killed. Dal had mentioned that he was having this conversation this week that the weakness of America's current infighting, coupled with the weak front on our foreign policy, is making us less safe. Sandra mentions, and hello, Sandra. It's good to have you with us on the channel. I don't recall if you've been here with us before, but thank you. Biden is a joke on the international stage. Harris is no better. 2024 can't come soon enough. And I see that you're contacting us from Facebook. It seems Facebook has allowed us to continue to speak publicly, even though at least one channel on Facebook still remains blocked. And Sandra, I think you're right. Again, we're open to hear everyone's opinion, and we are asking for that. We are asking you to comment. One of the few political commentaries in the United States at this moment that actually does engage and seek your comments, whether you agree with us or not. But I'm showing you the facts. And just like Sandra is mentioning, we're seeing nothing to give us confidence. I'm looking at what has changed in the 5 months plus that we have seen of the Biden administration at this moment. Let me ask you, how can you be confident? He is actively trying to empower Iran, which wants to kill us. And an absolute killer in Iran is now going into power, and the New York Times is trying to tell us that that's a good thing for us, that we're better off because a mass murderer will become in charge of billions of dollars if the Iran nuclear deal goes through. And we can trust that mass murderer to live up to his word when he says, oh, they won't make nuclear weapons. Are you kidding me? And the rest of the world is looking at this, watching the United States empower global terrorism at the same time that Joe Biden can't figure out which room he's supposed to be in because, remember, he got lost in a cafe during the G7 meeting and had to be taken to the proper room by Joe Biden, his wife. He is being laughed at, as I just showed you, when he can't remember the introductions at a meeting, when he is getting lost in his speeches, and that when he's facing people like Putin, he backs down and then tells them exactly where to attack the United States to destroy our nation, to disable us, and to make us less safe, as we have just shown you. My God, people, and someone's telling me that Joe Biden's a good thing, that he's making America better, that this is the best thing we could have. And it's not just Joe Biden. It's not just Joe Biden. Because I want you to think about this. This is how bad off we are right now. You may not have seen this. Yesterday at 8 p.m., it was reported that there was a driver who killed one individual, injured another at a gay pride event. As you can see from Yahoo News, a driver slammed into spectators Saturday evening at the start of a pride parade in South Florida, killing one man, seriously injuring another. This is the news story. Now, I want you to be very clear about this, because this news story is important. Because what we are seeing is that I believe it's the mayor of, here it is, Fort Lauderdale Mayor Dean Trentalis quickly denounced the crash at the Wilton Manors Stonewall Pride Parade as a terrorist attack on the LGBTQ community. And this is the status of America right now. Now, this is important. There was someone got killed at a gay pride event by another individual in a pickup truck. These are facts. And we have a mayor of a city, Fort Lauderdale, who is saying that this is terrorism, just like the domestic terrorism that we heard from Joe Biden, that we have to protect our people from terrorism, just like he said in his national strategy for countering domestic terrorism. This is terrorism. This is white nationalism. This is white supremacy. We have to protect everyone from this. Except there's something that's very, very important that I want you to understand when you read this story, when you learn about this story, when people are telling you that this is about domestic terrorism and that America is an evil, racist, sexist, homophobic place. I want you to understand something that's very important here. Because as it's reported, the Fort Lauderdale Gay Men's Chorus said in their statement, quote, "Our fellow chorus members were those injured, and the driver was also a part of the chorus family. To my knowledge, this was not an attack on the LGBTQ community. This was an accident." Again, to my knowledge, this was an accident, not an attack on the LGBTQ community. We anticipate more details to follow. Meanwhile, we have a mayor, a Democratic mayor, as I am aware, who is suddenly trying to gin up the public, to divide the public, to push this message of racism that we hear and sexism and homophobia that we hear from progressives, not moderates, not Democrats, not conservatives or Republicans or libertarians, that this is the message of the socialists, that America is an evil, horrible place, that everything that happens, well, that's evil because of white people, and the people who are color-skinned is light-skinned, that they are evil, horrible people, and we must demonize them. Even though the fact is, according to the actual gay organization, which has their gay members, that this individual was one of their members and it was an accident. The truth is it's an accident, that this was a gay man who accidentally put his foot between a gas pedal and the brake in a parade and accidentally ran over someone. And it's sad that someone died, but it wasn't a terrorist attack. It wasn't an act of terror. It wasn't an act of homophobic hate. This was an accident. Accidents happen. But this is being used to promote this idea that domestic terrorism exists, that there is a racial and sexist and homophobic hate in America that is intrinsic, and that you have to listen to the progressives and the socialists as the only way to fix it. even though they are the very people who are lying to you, that won't tell you that the leadership in Iran is a mass murdering domestic terrorist, Iranian domestic terrorist, and that he wants to destroy America, and that he wants the money from America to create more global terror. If you think I am wrong, please show me the proof. I'm showing you the news stories from Yahoo, from New York Times, from The Guardian, from Politico. I am going through all international and national news media almost exclusively from the left. Tell me how I am misunderstanding this. Tell me how you are not being misled. Tell me how the symbolic father of the United States at this moment, Joe Biden, is not failing the American people, and that we are less safe. Month by month by month, it is getting worse. And we are teaching this to our kids as we started with the program, that we are seeing this in our school systems, like individuals like Corinne Kirk, who is part of the Binghamton City School District School Board, and they are educating kids, making them believe that America is more racist and more sexist and more homophobic. And we have individuals like Macy Gray, an entertainer, who is pushing this message, knowing that the kids are not paying attention to the news. They are not looking at political commentary. They are not paying attention to the details, but they are listening to entertainers like Macy Gray and LeBron James as they promote communism in China and tell us in America that our flag is a representation of evil, even though no, that is not true, because if it was true, there wouldn't be millions of people trying to come to this nation every year and maybe 1,000 people trying to leave. Dow mentions he's sick of the lying narratives and he wishes a 2x4 of education could just be swung and clear the fog of war created by indoctrinators and propagandists. Well, Dow, you got to realize, according to Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, according to BLM, according to Antifa, I am a propagandist. The fact that I am showing you the proof, I am showing you the news articles, that I am showing you what the mainstream media will not focus on, that the local media will not focus on, the issues that are being pushed down, even as right this second, part of this stream is being denied to some people on Facebook, that even as this is happening, that I am mistaken, that I am lying to you, that somehow I have misunderstood the facts. I'm showing you the facts, not the feelings, the facts. Now, you don't have to agree with those facts. You especially don't have to like them. I have not asked anyone to like them, nor have I told anyone you have to agree with me. You're not a racist for disagreeing with me, even though I am black and I am Hispanic. But what you do have to, what I am asking is, do you see what's going on? I'm showing you truth that they don't want to talk about. And they want to label me and they want to label you for merely watching me show you the truth. To show you the information that is available to you and how they are disguising it and how they are not telling you about the consequences of the actions that they are making. Whether that's the consequence of Joe Biden telling Putin he is a soulless killer and then asking him to kindly not attack America's infrastructure. That we are watching Kamala Harris insult our allies in South Korea in the most despicable display of disgust in wiping her hands after shaking their hands and yet telling them, hey, why don't you work with America? That we are empowering our enemies, literally empowering our enemies as they commit global terror. And we turn around and anyone who disagrees with this is obviously a bad guy because we have our school system, we have individuals in our schools, and we have individual organizations that are out there trying to label everyone. And their answer is, well, you must be a racist because we define what racism is. And if you argue against our definition of racism, well, that's because you're a racist. It is a circular logic. It is a fallacy of logic. They are running in circles and they're hiding the fact. They're hiding all the edges to you so that you don't realize you're running in a circle, going nowhere, doing their bidding. That's what I believe. Dow mentions that the difference is, though, you show the proof that backs the truth. They manipulate information for falsehoods in the form of truth. Dow goes on to mention that the list of infrastructure just gives a hit list to our international enemies and actual domestic terrorists as well. And I think you're right, Dow. It's one of the most stupid things you could possibly say. I'm not saying that he couldn't have that conversation privately behind doors, although I think any intelligent politician wouldn't have that conversation. But it is another thing when you actually take that conversation and put it on international news and say, hey, this guy who just had a meeting with me, who is so opposed to me, who doesn't like me enough to even stand on the same stage with him. Think about that. Putin is so insulted and is so upset with Joe Biden that after having a meeting with him, he will not have a joint press conference because Joe Biden wouldn't let them do a joint press conference. And this is the guy that we're supposed to be telling not to have happen. Remember, Joe Biden and Putin had a meeting. Russia decided that they were willing to do a joint press conference after that meeting. Even though that Joe Biden had previously said that Putin is a killer and dared him to come out to the public and have a debate. And when Putin said, let's debate that publicly, Biden backed down and said no. When we have a joint meeting between these world leaders, Biden says no joint meeting. How am I supposed to see that this is a guy who's protecting us when he's afraid to even have a joint conference? And we are being led to believe that in that joint conference that he is afraid to have, in that meeting, he's afraid to have a conversation with us. And that is supposed to instill Putin and the Russian people and hackers around the world with enough fear to say, oh, we won't attack those 16 weak points that Joe Biden has just identified. Because Biden is so strong that he got lost at a meeting at the G7. Members of the G7 leadership in the world were laughing at Biden, and he is so afraid of Russia that he won't have a joint press conference with the man he just had a meeting with. Yeah, I bet they're quaking in their boots and they're afraid to do anything. Dow mentions, come on, man, here's our weaknesses. Please don't exploit them. Push-up contests. Go. Yellow belly dog face pony soldier. As a theoretical quote of Biden. Folks, I hope you're sharing this with your friends. I hope that you are seeing these videos, and whether it's live or after the fact, especially because we know that at least part of Facebook, they're blocking at least part of this, that we have the social media that is trying to silence us, that the left is attacking us, literally trying to scare people away from showing you information. And I'm not telling you or your friends that you have to believe what I believe. I'm not telling you that you need to become a conservative or Republican. No, what I'm asking you is to critically analyze. You'll see the links. Read the information for yourself. Look at the situation that's going on and ask yourself, is this better for you or worse? I'm not asking you to vote for Trump. I'm not asking you for the 2024 election. I'm simply asking you, is our nation being led in the right place? Are you going to be better off? Are we creating more racism Or are we trying to actually fight it? Are we creating more unity in our nation, or are we actually dividing ourselves? Are we becoming weaker internationally, or are we making more friends internationally? Friends that will actually defend us. Are we making our enemies in the world more fearful of attacking us? Or are we showing them our weaknesses and rolling over and playing dead? Biden is so, Dow mentions that, Biden is so manly. Give me a break. I wonder if the demand for the mental capacity test that Trump submitted to will be required for Biden. I can guarantee that the current administration will fight that tooth and nail. No, they won't, Dow. No, they won't. They will give him the test as Nancy Pelosi executes the 25th, or actually, it'll be Kamala Harris will execute the 25th Amendment, and that test will be used as proof that Joe Biden is no longer mentally stable, and that Kamala Harris will then take over the presidency, and this will happen at the end of 2022, right after the November election. Mark my words, that will happen. No one else in the news media will tell you that the Nancy Pelosi, which in, it was November of 2020, started October of 2020, was advancing the idea of the 25th Amendment because this was a plan to be used against Joe Biden because she was aware of his failing mental faculties, as we have seen on display since January through the G7 meeting right now, and that they have a plan to switch to give Kamala Harris, in their estimate and their hope, 10 years. 2 years when she replaces Joe Biden, and then run for re-election in 2024, and then run again in 2028, because you can only be president for a maximum of 10 years. So therefore, to give her the full maximum amount of time, she has to take over after the second year of Biden, not before. And this way, she will be able to be there forever. Because Democrats believe, as they have trained the American people and our kids, if you don't vote for Kamala Harris, you are a sexist and you are a racist. And they are counting on that to get her elected, even though when she ran in 2020 and she could not get 5% of Democrats, 5% of the Democrats, that was the most that she could convince of progressives and socialists and moderates and Democrats in general that she should be in charge of this nation. So this is their way to get around it. Dow mentions, wouldn't that put her beyond the 10-year mark? Well, see, there you go. The push for the mental test started in the last few days. They're going to have this conversation. It's not going to go anywhere until November 2022, after the midterm elections, and then you will see it. That is my belief. And Dow mentions that he guesses that they would fight the test until it was advantageous for them. Absolutely. And I would like to hear from any progressive, any socialist that thinks I am wrong about this. Call into the show, 607-242-1582. Leave a comment, either directly here while we are live or afterwards, and tell me why I am wrong on that. Explain to us. Show me I can show you all the reasons why I believe the mental faculties of Biden are breaking down before our eyes. And I can show you how Nancy Pelosi has spoken about instituting the 25th Amendment. And I can show you, and I've just discussed, how that works on a timeline to maximize a Democratic presidency under the progressive socialist ideology. Please show me the evidence that refutes the things that I am talking about to get a conclusion where this is not true. Please show me that evidence. Because I guarantee you there isn't that evidence, and no one in the news media is willing to even discuss this because they cannot justify anything other than what I have just mentioned, which is why they avoid the conversation entirely. because they do not want the American people to think, and they do not want you to realize what is being done to you, not for you. And again, I'm more than happy to engage in the conversation that says, Mike, you are wrong. I'm more than happy to do that. I'm more than happy to give people the time to tell me how I misunderstand. Whether it's about Iran, the Iranian nuclear deal, whether it's about what's going on with Israel, whether it's about what's going on with Joe Biden, what's the international importance of the United States under a Biden administration, the failures of the Kamala Harris in dealing with the southern border, whether it's about Macy Gray and trying to get rid of the flag, how this is disrupting and destroying our nation, the fallacy of the domestic terrorism movement right now. I'm more than happy to have these conversations. Please, if you have found this informative, I want you to share this. I want you to subscribe. I want you to leave comments, whether you agree or not. Because we as Americans should have the right to have this conversation. Because people around the world, in Great Britain, in France, in Canada, in Mexico, Peru, India, even in Hong Kong, they are watching this. And they are looking to see what is happening in America. And I want them to see both sides of this conversation. Although most of them have already seen what I'm talking about, and they see the same outcome. And that's why, at the same time, and I'm going to get to your comment in 1 second, Obsidian, but when we see and ask the international community, when we ask people from other parts of the world, what are they seeing happening in America at this moment? We come back to the same thing that we see from the North Korean defector who's looking at the United States and our colleges and telling us that we are worse than North Korea, that the corruption, that the destruction of freedom and speech, the destruction of the principles of the United States are worse than it's ever been. But Obsidian, you mentioned Republicans passed the 13th Amendment ending slavery and permanently outlawing it. 14th Amendment securing for blacks equal rights under the law. 15th Amendment giving blacks the right to vote. Sure, that is the Republican Party that did that. Not the Democrats, not the Democratic Party. In fact, they were opposed to that. In fact, Joe Biden was opposed to many of the civil rights movement. He was the one who was, friends with the KKK. That is a fact of history. That is a detail. He was friends with Robert Byrd, a leading member of the KKK. That was Joe Biden. Joe Biden, who has made more racially insensitive comments in the last 47 years than there's money in the world. You don't have to believe me. It's documented. Hell, Joe Biden, just in the last 5 months, has said that blacks, one, if you don't vote for him, you're not black. He's qualified what is or is not black. Joe Biden has gone out and said that blacks don't have enough money to be able to afford a $10 ID. He said that blacks are not smart enough to go online to be able to figure out how to go online, and two, how to go online and register to vote, telling black people that they are ignorant. He did that in the last couple of months. And yet he's the one telling us whether or not you can be racist, like what you can say is or is not racist. Dow says, I chafe whenever someone tells me what I have to do. Convince me, fine. Debate it, sure. Mandate it, naturally resist it. And I agree. Which is why on this program, we don't tell people what to believe. We don't tell you what to think. I am highlighting what is out there. What are the facts? What is being obscured by the mainstream media? What is being obfuscated by political leaders and organizations But I'm not telling you you have to believe what I believe. I am asking you to think about it, though, and to understand the consequences. And then what? It's a very, if you've watched this program for over the years, you'll know. We always say, and then what? What is the consequence? What happens because of this? What happens when we give $450 billion to the world leader in global terror, who has promised to kill all people in America, including socialists? What happens when we piss off the Soviet Union and when we antagonize them and then give them the exact targets to destroy our nation? What happens when we allow genocide in China and don't speak about it and we don't denounce it? What happens? What happens when we increase the instability in the Middle East? What happens in our nation when we tell people that they are intrinsically, by birth, racist? What happens? What happens when we penalize people for the color of their skin and then we try and give other people a benefit because of their skin color, which is, by definition, racism? I don't care if those people are black or white. In either of those situations, however you wish to put that together, it's racist. And then they try and change the definition of racism to hide the fact that they are being racist. And then they say that to defy them, to disagree with them, to have a question about what they have said is to be racist. It is a circle. It is insane, which destroys our nation, divides us as a nation. Dow says it breeds division, divisive hate, no matter which way you cut it. I believe that entirely. And you may or you may not. And by the way, we've got about 8 minutes more on the program, and then we'll be going for the day. I don't know, folks. And I'm very happy to see people like Acidian and many of the new faces that we've had on the program. I hope you all do subscribe. I hope we've earned the privilege of having you as subscribers to the program, to help us grow, to allow more people to be involved, to be able to have more people every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. discuss all of the issues that matter to you, to look at some of the things that are being hidden in the news media, that are not being told to us, that are not, that the consequences are being completely separated from the cause. And that the things that are going to affect not just us, excuse me, not only help affect us today, but affect our children tomorrow, because they're being taught all of this. Whether it's because Macy Gray saying it, or it's LeBron James, or it's your local school district, they're being taught that this is the way they should think. That they should bow down to people who would kill them, to bow down to people because of their color of skin, even if that endangers their own life, even if there is no justifiable, realistic proof or evidence that it's a good thing at all. In fact, even while every bit of empirical evidence that you can find tells you that it's worse for you to do the very things they're telling you to do, because their answer is, as said by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on 60 Minutes, it's not about being factually, exactly, detailed, correct. It's about how you feel. That's insane. We're watching progressives, and again, I'm not saying Democrats. We're watching progressives and socialists, a fraction of the Democratic Party. Something like 7 or 8% of the Democratic Party is leading the Democrats, the Democratic leadership by the nose, and they are dragging the rest of our nation behind them, kicking and screaming in some cases, because they want power, and they want you to be powerless. And they are trying to get that to happen. And it's happening. It's happening because guess what? Name another time in the history of the United States that there has ever been autonomous zones. Name another time in the United States where it was permissible, it was accepted that you could capture homes and civilians, hostages, hold them hostage, and break every law at a local, state, and federal level and be told you are a hero. Well, forget about the hero part, which is what BLM is being told all the time. Tell me another time in the United States history where you could capture property, where you can hold American citizens hostage, which is what autonomous zones do, and break every single law, and it's accepted. It's allowed to happen. Name one other instance in America where that has happened. Name another time in America when that has been allowed to happen. Because I don't think you can. I don't think it's true. But it's happening right now. And your kids are being told that's the way it should be. They're being told that arson, it's okay. Arson's perfectly fine. You can commit all the arson you want. Because that's what they said about BLM. They're being told that if you commit graffiti, members, these agitators, these political agitators who want power and want to and blame everything that's wrong in the world on race so that they get more and more power, these people are telling you that if you commit crimes like vandalism, that you're putting up graffiti, these individuals are telling our kids that's okay as long as you have the right color, as long as you vote the right way, as long as you donate and give power to the right people, you can do anything you want. Yeah, Mike. Mike Bowie mentions that it's a civil war. It's pushing towards that. I swear and I hope that it will never do that. But it seems like they're pushing towards it. Dal mentions, I doubt you would find an instance of where autonomous zones previous to today in the last year that they've been allowed to exist. Dal goes on to say, maybe the Old West, if you stretch it for the range wars that did exist and happen in the United States. Although during the Old West and the time of the range wars that were happening with homesteaders and people trying to take property, and if I remember that time period correctly, Dal, the Midwest and the Far West was not part of America while that range wars were happening. Texas was not part of America. Arizona was not part of America. The range wars happened before they became America, if I remember that time period correctly. And Dal goes on to say that last period of America came down hard on the anarchists. And yeah, and at the end of the Old West, as they became those states, those territories became part of America and became states, laws were enforced, and people who had been committing those atrocities were held accountable. So we've never seen this happen in America as a state. Territories, yes. The United States, no. And never to the degree that we see right now with Antifa, which we're told they're the good guys. And if you disagree, you must be a racist, you must be a sexist, you must be a homophobe, you must be a transphobe because you disagree. Because any disagreement means you are whatever they have called you, which makes no logical sense whatsoever. It means, in other words, you must be subservient and you must obey because someone told you to. That's insane. That's not America. And folks, I want you to be part anywhere in the world who watches this. And I hope someone shares this with you so you are able to see it. And I hope that you are in a nation free enough to allow you to comment to be able to see this freely and to make a comment. And I hope that you are in a nation where YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, the internet overlords are not blocking this content, that they have not isolated it, that they have not stripped it down so that you're able to see the whole thing. And if you are, I implore you, please comment, even if you disagree. Even if you, especially if you can tell me why these are positive, everything that I have mentioned, why these are positives, either for the United States or for the world in general. How is global peace being improved by the things we've talked about today? I truly want to hear this from anywhere in the world, but especially from the United States. So, folks, look, I know it's Father's Day, and I want to thank the people who saw the program. I want to thank people who were not blocked by some of the internet overlords and were able to comment, and those who will comment afterwards when the show is not live. I want to thank you all. And I look forward to hearing more from you guys. And I hope you subscribe, and I hope you share this. And I hope that we all remain free. And with that hope, I look forward to seeing you every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as we reach out to you like almost no other political commentator in the United States and pretty much the rest of the world, where we reach out directly to you to hear what you have to say about the issues that are affecting us all. With that, I want to thank you all. I want you to have a great day. And I want you to love each another, because we never know how long that we have. And I want to say God bless all of our fathers that are with us and those that have passed. God bless you all. You guys, I'll see you next Sunday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you.